But it's really important to understand how all that works together and that constructors are blueprints for your objects of which you can create instances of, so that you can create instances of your constructor functions, and that you got prototypes which allow you to implement inheritance, which sit on a higher level and provide kind of a fallback mechanism to find missing functions or fields. So you learned 4 different ways of creating objects. Here is the first one, using literal notation. It's one you'll often use. It's straightforward, easy, you directly see what you created. You got object.prototype as a prototype, and by the way, this has a constructor function too. You can see it if you check if person is an instance of object. So not object.prototype, which is the prototype, but just object. If I run this, you see that this is true. This of course makes sense if you have a look at the second way of creating an object with new object. This is identical to the literal notation you saw before, and here you directly see that object seems to be the constructor function used with new here. The third method shown was using object create. Here you can pick your prototype and you can set it to null if you don't want this to have a prototype. Then you would not even have object.prototype as a fallback mechanism. As you can see, if you try to log person.toString, which would work on all objects, but here you get an error that you don't have that function since this doesn't have object.prototype as a fallback mechanism. If you check if this is an instance of object, you see that this is also false. So this is a way to create an object which is pretty standalone. The last method you saw was using a constructor function or your own constructor function. So you're not using the built-in new object, but instead new person based on this function setup here. And I just talked a lot about this. So this has the advantage of allowing you to build your own blueprint of which you create objects. And of course you can create multiple objects of that blueprint. It also ships with its own prototype, person.prototype, but it also would have object.prototype as a high-level fallback, which all objects have, besides the exception you just saw created with object.create past null.